But about 40% of the league is changing coaches for fun these days, and we have a lot to catch up on.
What is with it with the NHL and recycling coaches? I don't understand. I don't see this in any other sport where like assistant coaches or coaches from the minors don't get hired on a regular basis. It just seems like there's like this conglomerate of coaches and they hop from one team to the other. I don't get it.
You're right. I don't get it either. I think it's probably has to do with the lack of progressive minds you see leading NHL teams these days. They're all former players, and former athletes can be progressive. They can be a lot smarter than maybe athletes are giving credit for. But it's like a bit of an old boys club in the NHL.
It's not even that. It's the last 3 promotions from the minors that I can think of in Keefe, Woodcroft, and like Dallas Eakin maybe from Anaheim. Was it Anaheim?
He was with their minor team.
All 3 of them have been remarkably successful.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that, especially on young teams when you have these guys coaching players in the minors.
For sure.
Again in the NHL. I'm surprised we don't see that more. I don't really know why, because it happens in other sports, like you said. Maybe it's just there needs to be sort of a change of thinking in front offices they're too comfortable with these guys who they know that have been there before. I also wonder if it's a not public pressure, but perception rather, where if you go and hire a more of an unknown guy and he doesn't do well, then you're on the hot seat. But if you hire a Maurice Cassidy, and that's not fair because Bruce Cassidy is a really good coach, but you hire a veteran coach and he doesn't do well, it's like, we boo him for the experience hire. We thought that it would be smart. You have something to lean back on. Maybe that's them just kind of being a little bit selfish and wanting to save themselves.
Yeah.
Which is not the way to run a team, but it's a possibility. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, one really good point you made a while back is I didn't know how Jay Woodcroft did so well in the Oilers, and you said it well. You said he coached a lot of these guys in the minors, right? Maybe there's something about players having a good bond in the affiliate and then buying in because they know that this coach is a good guy. And especially with the league getting so much younger, I don't understand how this doesn't happen more often. And one thing I'll say too is that when you have coaches who are known to be like tough guys in the locker room, or veteran coaches might come to a young team, and there's a great example of this we'll talk about pretty soon. They might come in and they might think my way or the highway, no voices here, like we were doing it my way, and that might like deteriorate the culture. Versus when you see these younger guys come in like Keefe and Woodcroft, when you would watch their their pre-games on the ice in the practices, like you would see them like giving players chances to speak, like players would be actively involved in decision making, and they grow with the team. And I think that helps players buy in. And you've seen it in the Oilers, you've seen it in the Leafs, compared to their 2 last coaches who unsurprisingly fit the bill that I just described in Tippett and Babcock with my way or the highway. You bring in new guys who are willing to give players a chance to be involved, and look what happens to the team. They transform. They become a unit.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's a great point. I don't know why that doesn't happen more often. It definitely should.
Give us a GM job.
Yeah, honestly. Maybe one day.
You want to talk about each of these coaches?
Yeah, let's start with the one that you called, Cassidy, to Vegas. You're kind of your low-key second favorite team.
Yeah. Funny enough, I mean, I called it on last week's episode, and the news came out like 30 minutes after we were done filming.
We recorded the same day.
It's kind of funny. I mean, we'll be quick here. It makes perfect sense. Bruce Cassidy coaches that gritty style, big team that likes to load up on one line. That's exactly what Vegas is going to do next year. They're going to put Pacioretty, Eichelstone on one line. He knows how to coach a team with little depth past that. And for everyone who's going to argue with me that, Vegas is very deep, fine, but like they kind of fall off a cliff after, like Boston did. They have a good second and third line, but it's not a first line in any other league. Versus when you look at the Leafs, like you could make an argument their second line could have been a first line on like the Arizona Coyotes. Bruce Cassidy knows how to coach these teams. Bruce Cassidy isn't a rebuilding coach. He coaches to win, and Vegas is in win mode. And I think you said it too a while ago that Vegas loves to fire guys and get guys when they find somebody that they might want. We talked about it, that Bruce Cassidy There were a lot of rumors that Cassidy and Sweeney didn't like each other. One of them was going to get fired. I wonder if Vegas had their eye on Cassidy for a while, knew he was going to get fired through the grapevine, fired DeBoer prematurely so that they could get him quick, because Cassidy was scooped up very quickly by that team.
Like within days.
Right? So I wonder if they knew it was coming.
Maybe they do. That's a risky game to play.
It
though.
is.
It is. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because maybe optically it doesn't look good if you fire DeBoer and then literally the same day hire Cassidy. Maybe they knew they were heading away from DeBoer, but they also knew that Cassidy might become free. So they're like, whatever, we're gonna fire you anyway. Let's give ourselves enough time to go get our guy. And they got him. And then they signed him to a pretty fat deal too. 5 years, $4.5 million. He's getting paid like a third liner.
Yeah.
Like a third borderline second liner. I guess that's how valuable coaches are these days. Coaches probably also have more leverage than they've had in a while. But for Vegas to sign a guy to 5 years when they haven't had a coach last more than 2 is kind of, they don't really care about money, these guys. They want to win.
Yep.
And I guess good for them. I think they're going to have a really strong season next year. The Pacific is going to be one to watch. Because I don't know if Edmonton will be good again, I think. I don't know if Calgary's going to be as good as they were, with Gaudreau potentially leaving. Who knows what happens there. It's going to be, still probably the weakest division on paper, but every team seems like there's going to be an evening of the playing field in that division, so I think it'll be fun to watch. Next, you talked about my way or the highway coaches, and I give credit to this guy because he has evolved a little bit, but I think John Tortorella is literally the definition of my way or the highway, and I kind of like the fit in Philly.
Really? Okay, talk about him.
Just because he's such like a gritty, just kind of a little bit arrogant, rough around the edges, and that's how I think most people from the outside would describe Philly as a city. I don't know if this happens a lot in other sports. I think especially in like soccer and in Europe, where coaches oftentimes you have to fit sort of the history of the club or the mentality or the city to really like fully ingrain yourself into the club and have success. I don't really see that much in hockey. I guess maybe it's not a North American thing, but if there ever was something where like that was a consideration, I think they made the perfect hire on a personality basis. I mean, he's also 10% of Phillies that's from Italian descent, which is kind of cool. He's Italian. I don't know if that doesn't matter at all. I just thought it was a cool fact to bring up. But in general, I used to think Torts was honestly a bit of an ass and overrated. But his time in Columbus actually kind of changed my perception of him. I think he's actually developed, or not developed, because development is not the right word. I think he's evolved a little bit to become less of an old school coach and more of a new school guy. And recently, a lot of players on Columbus have said that they really enjoyed their time with him.
Really?
And he got a lot of, yeah. Well, like you see Brandon Dubinsky. Obviously, Dubois didn't like him. Those are guys who stand out for not liking him. But I listened to Nick Foligno not too long ago on an interview. Said that he really enjoyed working with him. Cam Atkinson seemed pretty happy about him coming to Philly. I think he's definitely maybe a guy you like, or you either love him or you hate him. But what he's good at is he got a lot out of a team that was really below average on paper in Columbus. He had a 227, 166, and 54 record there over 6 seasons. Made to the playoffs 4 out of 6 times, and 4 years in a row between 16, 17, 19, 20. He was also the last coach, don't forget, to beat the Lightning. He swept them. Mm-hmm. And he also kind of fed the Leafs their lunch in the bubble. Right? So I don't think he's a terrible coach. I could see this going really well or terribly just because Philly's such a mess, but I kind of low-key like the fit. I don't know about you.
It's so tough because that argument is good, but like we're talking about a team next season that is probably going to be very similar to the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, they're not good.
They're not good whatsoever. And if towards the end didn't work out in Columbus, like why do we think it's going to work out in Philly? You're right. They made playoffs 4 out of the 6 times on a team that had no business ever being there. But is Philly trying to win right now, or are they trying to develop?
Well, this is the thing. I think every single fan and person on the outside thinks they should be developing and rebuilding, but they think they're going to win. So
how? There's nobody there.
But they're deluded, and Chuck Fletcher, I believe, it's Chuck Fletcher, is deluded. He spends money. He's probably going to go try and throw the book at Johnny Gaudreau to get him to sign there. They think they're good, and they're always trying to be good. They've never gone through a full rebuild like they've needed to. Mm-hmm. So they clearly think that they have something to prove. They clearly think they're a team that's capable of making the playoffs. We all know that they're probably not, but we're not making decisions for that team.
Yeah, I agree. Like, John Tortorella is not a rebuild coach. He won a cup with Tampa in 04 on that stacked team. Was that the team when Le Cavalier was on it?
Cavalier, I think. Yeah, Marty St. Louis.
And then Eastern Conference Finals in 2012 with New York. He's not a coach that rebuilds. And like you said, you know, his time in Columbus was successful because he did more with the team in terms of success than what should have happened. But when he got there compared to when he left, did the team develop anymore? Were younger players better than they were? I mean, I don't think so. And I don't think Philly is in the position here where they want to be finishing in a playoff spot where they lose in the first round. Like that awesome interview we had last week. I mean, he said that the worst place to finish in the NHL is middle of the pack.
All of that is 100% true. But that's a very rational and logical approach that I don't think the Flyers are capable of taking.
I don't know why they'd want to be a team that wins semi-decently, because that's what Tortorella gives you. He will take a great team and help them win a cup. He'll take a bad team and help them finish way higher than they are. He's a very good, successful coach. But the Flyers want to be bad. They want to develop players. They want to be bad next year when quite possibly the best prospect since McDavid's going to go first.
You're right.
I don't understand.
They should want to do all those things, but they clearly don't think that they're going to be that. They have an old roster too.
Yeah, and here's also what I'm saying. You said that the Flyers are going to throw the book at Johnny Gaudreau. The Flyers aren't even in the position to do that. Next year, Fletcher has no cap space. I think Cap Friendly says they have $5.1 million of free space to improve their lineup. That lineup has so many holes, it's Swiss cheese, and they're gonna go spend it on Johnny Gaudreau. They need to make up double the cap space they have. And by the way, the Metropolitan Division is gonna get better next year, and Philly's gonna be the worst team in that league. And I don't know about you. I don't think the first word I would use to describe John Tortorella is patience. If that team is so bad that Philly fans are putting paper bags on their head again, you think Tortorella is going to be okay with that in 2 years?
No,
and he's going to start yelling at players, which, I mean, does it get them going? Yeah, it gets mature players going. But if you're going to develop young players, I mean,
that's not the way to do it.
I don't know. I think he's a great coach. I just don't think the fit is good.
Yeah, I think it's going to end up going very poorly as well. I could see them maybe being better next year, taking a step. I guess a step from being fifth worst in the league is easy to do. The bar's pretty low there, but I could easily see this becoming a tire fire. This organization's already a mess. They're already a mess. Maybe they need an explosion like this to figure themselves out, for Chuck Fletcher to get fired, because quite frankly, he's not a good GM. I don't know. I think it's going to be fun to watch, though.
It will be fun to watch. The Flyers media is probably next to the Leafs, one of the craziest media in the league, and we already know Tortorella versus media is always very fun. But you said it very well when Montreal hired St. Louis, and I didn't understand why they did that. And you said, maybe they want a guy to be in the dressing room when the team is really bad, so not that they can pin it on a guy, but so that they can get the guy that they want when the team's in a position to win. Like you said, Tortorella's it's gonna be bad, but it's not gonna be bad because he's a bad coach. It's gonna be bad because the team is an NCAA team.
The team is they're probably Arizona exists, so this is not maybe true, but among legit NHL teams, they're probably the most poorly constructed, because they have a bunch of old, injury-prone guys who don't even play full seasons. Couturier got really hurt last year. Kevin Hayes, who's good and went through a family tragedy last year, so give him benefit of the doubt to bounce back. But he's not getting any younger. Yeah. Ryan Ellis is old and literally never plays hockey anymore.
Hurt.
They're so old and average.
I think the Tortorella move in 3 years would have been fine, but right now, get a coach to take them through these problems, because no coach is going to save this team, especially because of the fact, like you said, this organization is in such shambles. Semyon Varlamov wanted out of the Islanders last year and said, I would rather stay in a place I don't want to be than go to Philly. And he said that about the Oilers as well. Trotz was offered a $7 million plus AAV deal. Didn't want to go there.
We'll get to Trotz. Yeah.
This organization's in shambles. They should have given an AHL coach or someone who's been with younger players a chance to thrive in the NHL, they should have played their entire AHL team next year. Maybe one or two of those prospects turn out to be way better than you thought. You'll get the first overall pick or the second, and then in 2-3 years, you have now developed AHL players with a system they buy into because they like the coach with a great high pick. Like, throw these years away. What are you doing? Like, I don't get it.
I just don't think I just don't think they're able to think that way, because they're clearly a short-sighted management team. We're gonna keep tabs on this on them over the next year, because it's gonna be, like we already said, it's gonna be really, really kind of interesting to see how this plays out. I agree with you 100% that that's the route they should have taken. Kind of happy for us, for content purposes, I use the C word, that this is maybe going to be one of the funnier stories to watch, and one of the maybe more explosive things we're going to see out of a coach sort of relationship. Let's move on to, you called Cassidy. I will take credit for this because I'm usually wrong. DeBoer to the Stars, I kind of called this one.
You did talk about it. I don't have much to say here because this was your call, so floor is yours.
Well, I'll be quick here because this is what I said in the video, where one of our listeners asked us, well, where does DeBoer go now? Well, I said he's going to go to a veteran team that wants to win. Dallas fits that bill. They haven't been, I wouldn't classify them as contenders, but they're definitely in a position where they're looking to win sooner than they're looking to rebuild. And the Stars also played maybe next to the Islanders. They're the Islanders of the West. They played so boring. I don't know how Rick Bowness can stay awake on the bench when his team gets 12 shots. But I think they can use a change of voice. Maybe get guys like Seguin. We can maximize Robertson. Pavelski's been really good under a defensive coach. He's old now, but he still has some time left. I think he's 35 or 36. He's an older dude.
And they're reunited again, right? DeBoer coached him in San Jose.
Right. Yes, you're right about that. So I think it actually can work. Seguin's been, I was talking about Seguin, he's been kind of underwhelming the past few years. Maybe a more offensive coach, or anybody's more offensive than Bowness. So maybe having a guy like DeBoer there will get him going. Jimmy Benn had some pretty solid season. He's on a bit of a renaissance in his career. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Dallas is going to be able to make waves and make a Stanley Cup final like they did a couple of years ago, because I don't think they're that good. But I like the fit of this hire on the surface, and I think DeBoer's going to do a pretty decent job there.
I like the move too.
Okay. Next, and this one for me was the most shocking. Paul Maurice to the Panthers. Andrew Brunette gets shafted a little bit. What do you think?
It's easy to say as someone who podcasts in a basement about one of the most historically good coaches in the NHL. But recently, why do people love Paul Maurice? Like, what has he done
I don't know.
Recently that is so great? And this isn't me saying that, I know more than Paul Maurice. Like, look, he's a great coach. He deserves to be a coach in the NHL. But I don't think he deserves to be put up on the pedestals with the John Coopers and those types of guys, because he's been pretty mediocre recently.
You're not wrong.
Right? He's never won a cup. His record is just slightly above positive. Like, I think he's won like 50 more games, and I mean, seeing the fact that he's coached over 1,000 games, that's nothing that's great. Mm-mm. I mean, and what was wrong with is Andrew Brunette? The dude took them to a President's Trophy. Like, they were a President's Trophy team. He had that team for 3/4 of the year. Yeah. They finally made it past the second round. All the jokes about the Leafs in Tampa where they couldn't get past the first round, he finally did that. He was running for the Jack Adams as well. The only issues I had with him was that he didn't make adjustments on the power play. But what else are you supposed to do? That was one of the best power plays in the league towards the end of the year when they got Giroux. Like, what do you want him to do? Take off Giroux or Barkov off the power play? I just think the team didn't play for him when it mattered most. They were too busy having fun in certain types of clubs and before Game 4. Like, what? I don't. You gotta give Andrew Brunette a second chance, unless they loved the Maurice fit and they knew he was going to be taken, maybe. But Andrew Brunette was like, come on, that was a little dirty what they did to him.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that they moved on from him too. I guess that sweep really left a sour taste in their mouth, and this seems like it might have been a bit of an emotional decision or a very recency bias influenced decision. Just, I mean, it doesn't look good when you get swept handily by your division and division rival and next door neighbor. Maybe there was just a sentiment up top in terms of the management that maybe they couldn't bounce back from that as a unit if they didn't change anything. Maybe, like you said, he didn't make adjustments and they weren't pleased with that. It could also maybe be the fact that they were forced into making a change unexpectedly last year, and maybe all along Brunette wasn't their guy. Like he had been on the bench, so that was a natural progression. Maybe not to cause too much waves or to make too much of a change when they were already successful. But maybe they knew all along that this wasn't maybe their plan, and the sweep made it easier for them to follow through on that. I don't know. I don't have information on that. But that seems like, to me, the only reason why you would fire him is if you already didn't think he was the guy and he gave you what you consider to be even more proof to go and pull the trigger on that deal. That's my thinking of maybe the decision to fire him. But the decision to hire Paul Maurice, I've only seen Jets fans complain that he doesn't get the most out of that Jets team. That Jets team on paper is good.
Really good.
And ever since they made the conference finals, I think when in 2018 when the Caps won the cup, they really haven't been great. I know they've had to overhaul their defense because their whole right side left in one off season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're good enough to be making the playoffs, that team.
Yeah, without a doubt too. And I guess the one credit is Paul Maurice is a very defensive-minded coach, correct?
So I would say so.
Maybe this is good for Florida players, because we know they're apart from Alexander Barkov, that team doesn't really play defense up front. But I saw a funny tweet that who's probably the most pissed that Paul Maurice is coming to the Panthers?
Is it Jonathan Huberdeau?
Because he's gonna be like, damn, I gotta actually play some defense now, or I might sit. Because he wasn't even nominated for the Hart Trophy, which is kind of crazy because of the year that he was having offensively, which is so bad defensively. Yeah. I mean, this could go really well or it could go really bad if the players buy in. And Jonathan Huberdeau turns into a premier two-way defenseman, then fine. But what's probably going to happen is he's not going to buy in, and it's going to cause problems like it did in Winnipeg, or he's going to be more focused on defense and put up 70 points instead of his 110. I don't know how it's going to go. It's not so much that I don't like the Maurice move. It's that I don't think it's as crazy as everyone's talking about, and I think Burnett should have been given another chance.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think Burnett he definitely got shafted a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely going to end up coaching somewhere else, whether it be as an assistant. He'll probably get another chance as a head coach soon.
Yep.
But yeah, little odd. I was, I guess like on a quick side note, I guess good for Paul Maurice that he's kind of gotten over whatever was, affecting him when he took a step back from his coaching role. But we were kind of joking about it. It's probably an easy decision to come back to the NHL when you go from maybe the worst market in terms of climate and like just things you can do to maybe the best, and also tax-free now in terms of state taxes. It's probably a pretty easy decision to make when you want to come back. Getting to live in South Florida is a pretty good way to reintroduce yourself to the league. So I guess good for him. We'll see how that plays out. Just a couple more coaches to get to. This one will be quick because we talked about it a little bit, but Woodcroft is now considered the coach, not the interim anymore. No brainer. Quick 2 seconds.
Oilers bought in. They were out of a playoff spot before he came in. He took them to the playoffs. They should have beat LA. They did. They shouldn't have beat Calgary. They did. I mean, they shouldn't have won a game against Colorado. They didn't. Yeah. He got the most out of their top players, and I mean, he seemed to have been very malleable to adjustments, which was great. Like he put that first line together when they needed to be. Mm-hmm. He gives players a voice. Like I honestly, you see him in the quick snippets that they show on SportsCenter in the practices. Like I said, like he is having conversations with all these different players. Like the players look happy to be there. Like they're all laughing and smiling. It just seems like a good vibe. And I mean, also in the post-game pressers, I love watching them, and I love watching the Oilers ones because I know that every coach should be knowledgeable about hockey, but this guy just seems on a different level. Like he is a student of the game. Mm-hmm. He'll talk explicitly about how much research that they do going into game in, game out. He's a great, I don't know the word for it, but like a leader or a figure for this team, especially for how young that they are.
Yeah, no, very, very well said. I think it was only a matter of time before he was locked up, and if they would have went a different direction, that would have been a big head scratcher. So I guess good on them for sticking with a coach that got the most out of a flawed roster. Yep. Hopefully Ken Holland does his part and gets him some better defensemen and a goalie. Yep. And they can make some real noise. Now, we talked a little bit about the Jets. Trotz has decided to take a break from coaching for the time being, to spend more time with his family, and that's fine. He's 60 in a couple weeks. can't really fault the guy. Look, he'd coached for I think 22 straight years since 1990.
Wow.
Give the guy a break.
You know why I'm laughing? Because do you know what I'm taking a break away from coaching translates into?
What's that?
I don't want to play in Philly
Or Winnipeg.
He was actively interviewing. There's no way a guy who wants to stop coaching is going to interview for fun.
Yeah, that was kind of odd.
Right? What happened is that he interviewed with teams he wanted to coach, a team that plays in negative 60-degree weather and another team that hasn't won 20 games for 5 years gave him a job, and he turned down $7 million a year for multiple years. Like you said, the guy is 60. He doesn't want to live out like the last portion of his coaching career coaching a terrible team.
Yeah. And I guess he has a luxury of being Barry Trotz where he can take a step back, and then when a team he feels is closer to contention needs a coach, be it mid-season or be it next offseason, that he can kind of pick his spot. Yeah. I thought he'd have an opportunity to pick a spot this offseason with all the openings, but I guess, maybe the team he was eyeing, maybe Vegas, went a different direction.
Or Florida. I thought he would fit well there.
Or Florida too. Yeah, I'm surprised that was the case. I thought he would have been scooped up right away, but clearly he has some other plans for this year. Good for him. Kind of crappy though for the Jets because they were pushing so hard. I think all Jets fans thought they had him in the bag, and now they're kind of left empty-handed, and they have to kind of pivot and go and kind of take a look at some new candidates. We don't know who those candidates are. Maybe next week we'll have a better idea. We can talk about it, but
yeah, go see. Maybe Mark Scheifele's dad wants to coach.
Yeah, well, they already had a dad coaching the team.
That's what I mean.
Dave Lowry. If you get Mark Scheifele's dad coaching, Mark Scheifele is going, oh man, like a guy like that. I'd love to see it just for the chaos though. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. And find the link to our full podcast and all our socials in the description down below.
Also, don't forget to turn on those notifications to get live updates on new videos that we release.